My name is Nicole, or Nick. I'm a mother of 2 boys and I live with spinal cord injury. I'm also an advocate for change to the system of family violence, especially looking at women and making sure women with disabilities are not forgotten.
My name is Stacey and I'm 24 years old. I have Bethlem myopathy, which is a type of muscular dystrophy. I work full-time doing digital communications and social media, and I really like photography and travelling.
I have been through the NDIS planning process. Didn't have confidence in my first planner and requested a second, and that resulted in a really good planning session with a well-informed planner, and I now have a very comprehensive plan in place.
I've been on the NDIS since September 2016, so coming up to a year.
What tips would you give women about preparing for the planning meeting? I think to start with would be to really sit back and have a think about what, in an ideal world, what would your life look like? So the best case scenario of all the things you'd like to do, what care and what supports would be put in place to facilitate that ideal world?
Before I went into my planning meeting, I made sure to make some notes about what supports I was already getting, and also some questions that I wanted to ask my planner about the NDIS and about the process. So I guess my main tip would be just to make sure you're prepared going in, and then make sure you know what supports you're getting, both formal and informal. For example, I almost forgot to mention that I was getting the mobility allowance, but then the planner just asked me if I was getting it. So then I was like, oh yeah, I am getting it, which is really good, because if I hadn't mentioned it, well, if she hadn't mentioned it, it probably wouldn't have gone over onto my plan.
Things like contacting your OT if you've got an OT. Mine had a draft ready to go for all of her clients, so she was able to fit in all of my information, so I had that there ready to give to the planner at the planning meeting. You know, here's a letter from my OT, this is the support that I require from her, and she had all of that written, so I was able to hand that to her. Also having copies of all of your paperwork. Now I know if you're already on an individual support package, all of that information is meant to be handed over to them. And in my case, it wasn't, and I'd planned for that, so I had a copy of it on myself, ready to say, so when she said, no, we haven't received that, you know, some information gets lost, and they go, well, that's great, terribly sorry about that, but, you know, here's another copy. So accounting for the fact that things get lost, so have copies of everything, so that when they turn around and say, well, we don't have that information, you go, well, actually, I do.
What tips would you give women about developing and wording their goals?
I can't stress enough, when you're talking about your goals, you really need to use the word independence everywhere. That seems to be the key word. So this goal will help me retain my independence. This goal will help me gain my independence, whether or not it's, for me, it was going to university. So that helps me in gaining my independence, gaining my confidence, so that I can be, you know, eventually go on to have a job and be financially independent from things like DSP or family members. So your goals need to be around, well, having somebody come in and do the garden will help me be independent. So yeah, just making sure you can word the phrase gaining or retaining independence into your goals will help facilitate, you know, those things actually being implemented in your plan, and that's what you want. If they're your goals, then they need to help support you in what those goals are.
Well, before I went into the planning meeting, I was pretty nervous because people were saying that you had to be really specific about the wording of your goals, and that if you weren't really specific in using like specialised terms, that you might not get the right supports. But then when I went in, it was more of just a general chat with my planner, and it worked out that my goals are really, really broad, which worked out way better, because then if you ever have to do like a plan review or something, you can refer back to those goals in your initial plan, and they can kind of back up what you're saying in your plan review. So my goals were just things like continue to live independently and like maintain the lifestyle that I was when I started the plan. What tips would you give women about the planning meeting?
Don't be afraid to state what it is that you want and state what it is that your care looks like, because that's what these plans are meant to be. It's not a cost-cutting measure for anybody. It is to provide you to be independent and retain independence, essentially.
Well, one thing I didn't know about the planning meeting was that you can get them to come to your house. So when my planner rang up, she asked if I wanted to do it over the phone or if she could come out to my house like whenever I wanted. So I work full time, but she said that she could come out during the weekend or after work. So I chose for her to come out after work because I thought I'd rather her like meet me in person and see where I live and things rather than just me being a voice on the telephone.
If you feel you need to have a support person there, then that's quite okay, but you don't have to have a support person present with you during your planning meeting. I didn't have somebody with me, but you don't have to have a family member there, you don't have to have a carer there. But in saying that, I think it's really important to think about these are a stressful situation. There's a lot of things to think about. Having a second pair of ears there isn't necessarily such a bad idea. It doesn't hurt. But thinking of maybe asking somebody like your OT, a service provider that doesn't have any emotional connection to you, to be there with you, that may think of things that you might have forgotten whilst the planner is there.